Alrighty, folks, we have the one and only Taylor from Life Goal Investments here. It's the first time we've spoken in 2025, so we'll get the whole Happy New Year's and Happy Holidays out of the way, man. How you doing?
Good, good. Happy New Year, happy holiday. Let's do this. 2025. Let's figure out what's coming down the pike here.
Yeah, so when you look at the economy, and I think this a lot of what we talk about, stocks, real estate, crypto, frankly, all of that, it is all based on what is going on in the U.S. economy, if not the world economy. So, Taylor, I'm asking you, when you look at the tea leaves, when you look at the history as a lens or a hint of what's coming, I think there's three potential outcomes, and I'd just love to hear from you which one you think is most likely, or maybe a percentage for each three. The number one is, we'll start on a positive note. No landing, right? We have a new administration coming in. The often and incorrectly called recession has not materialized, or at least it doesn't appear it has, unless the data gets revised. So again, number one will be no landing, just kind of a continuation of where we are. Number two, we finally have that often declared recession. Again, I can see a way that comes. And then perhaps the most painful and uncomfortable might be stagflation. So I'll let you add to that list if you have any, but those are the three that I see as potential. I think all three are non-zero possibilities, but I'm curious, where are you on the U.S. economy?
Yeah. So I'm not in the ballpark or the camp that this is just like going to go gangbusters and we're going to have another 25% market, out of the stock market this year, and GDP is going to continue to tick off at 2.8, 3%, whatever it is. But I am in the camp that most likely is no landing still. I still believe that is the highest probability, and call it, 60, 65%, somewhere in that ballpark. And I think that a lot of people misread when I say that, and they automatically associate me, because I come from the Wall Street, I own a financial advisory firm. They think that, okay, if you're positive on the economy, that you are broadly positive on stocks as well. I look at things and I say, what's going to happen this year in highest likelihood is the economy continues to do fine. Not gangbusters, right?
Fine. And just so you know, your mic is rubbing on your shirt just a little bit. There you go.
Unplug this if we need to.
No, it's fine. Just keep it off the collar. So,
yep.
Thank you for that. And then, I think, first off, the stock market, the stock market's been up 20% 2 years in a row. I think it's only happened 5 times. So, again, calling for another 20% is probably not a bad call. It's pretty unlikely.
Totally. You don't have to be a rocket scientist.
Yeah, you went on a limb on that one.
Play with the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I would tell you the momentum is, 2.5%. It's a fine U.S. economy. So, and I agree that would be kind of a no landing scenario. So that's your base case.
Yeah, and I think that if you're kind of curious as to what happens in the stock market in that scenario, I think nothing happens in the stock market in that scenario.
Yeah,
and that makes a lot of sense, because if you have 2.5%, 2%, somewhere in that ballpark GDP growth, companies' earnings continue to chug along at a faster pace than that. Call it 8% earnings growth, somewhere in that ballpark, and stocks do nothing. What happens then is stock multiples then become reasonable, as opposed to being just crazy high at 22 times earnings where we sit right now.
Yeah. So really what you're saying is kind of the stock market kind of grows into its valuation.
Correct. Companies grow into stock market.
Or companies
valuation.
grow. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So in that kind of environment, it's just everything kind of stays fine. Unemployment kind of stays below 4.5%. Inflation kind of limps towards 2%. Just kind of a sideways market. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that inflation probably ticks a little bit higher. I think that's the kind of the trend that we're seeing right now. I think unemployment ticks a little bit higher. But doesn't
you say a little bit, but not. So today it's currently 4.2. We get a jobs number on Friday, which we'll talk about in the next video, but it stays below 4.8.
Yeah. I think that's fair. And it's hard to say that, yes, the jobs market has been weakening some. And if you look at household data versus non-farm payroll, the numbers look different. And I get that. But at the end of the day, it's hard to make this like really doom and gloom, nasty scenario. It just hasn't played out.
Okay. All right. So that's a no landing. Again, I don't know if you want to put a 0 on it. I wouldn't put a 0 on this, but the other outcome is we may have that, often talked about, but hasn't happened, recession.
Yep.
Maybe it's a Q4, Q1 recession. I don't know. But again, I think a recession's a non-zero chance. But what say you?
No, I agree with you. When you think about trends in data, when it comes to jobs data moves very slowly.
Mhm.
And so what happens is it kind of is that Titanic turning the corner. And so
Right.
there's definitely an argument to be made that the Titanic has begun its shift. And you're starting to see jobs go from, again, mid threes unemployment, which was incredibly low on every historical standard. Now
Yeah.
we're at 4.2, which is still really low by historic standards. But at the end of the day, that directionally is not the right direction. And
Yeah.
that's moving higher. And, you start to strip out then, we look forward and we say, what happens if the big employer, the big job adder over the last year is no longer there? And who is
Yeah.
that? That's Uncle Sam.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if Doge really kicks off and there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of former government employees, no longer government employees, that'll be felt. There's no
Yes.
question.
Yes,
Yeah.
because that's been, hey, when you look at the private markets, nothing has happened from an employment standpoint.
Right.
And then you look at the public market of the government, fiscal stimulus is a wash out there. And it still is very present in the market.
Okay. Very cool. And then the last one, let's talk about stagflation.
Mhm.
Let's talk about stagflation as a possibility. That is kind of the worst case outcome, but is something that is certainly, I think, non-zero again.
Agreed. And I think that if you want to talk about stagflation, you want to talk about tariffs. I think tariffs are the potential driver of stagflation. So stagflation, a combination of high inflation coupled with low economic growth, depending on how tariffs are implemented, you can get a tit for tat scenario. And so if we say, hey, anything coming from China is going to cost 60% more, we're going to take a 60% tariff, whatever it is. And all of a sudden they go, by the way, you still export a lot of your agriculture to our massive economy and our massive population. And so therefore we're not going to buy any more agriculture from you guys. And that's kind of the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is these become bargaining chips and we get better deals in the United States. And that's certainly what the Trump camp is trumpeting, if you will. And if done correctly, that certainly can happen. But last time we went to China and we said, hey, we're going to impose tariffs, they came to the negotiation table, and Barron's just wrote an article this weekend on it. And they said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to increase our agricultural buying from the United States by 200% or something like that. And they're like, yeah, we'll do it. And they never followed through. And maybe that was a function of new president came into office and they weren't forced to, hold their feet to the fire or whatever it is. But I guess, the negotiating chip didn't necessarily work in that scenario like we had expected it to.
Yeah. Very cool. I'm sorry, just urgent note. So at the end of the day, if we're going to put 100%, this is the cumulative total. What do you think? No landing, recession, stagflation as collective odds?
Yep. I think that's like a 60-20-20 split. And
oh, wow. Okay. 60-20-20. I didn't think you'd give stagflation that high, but
the trends in inflation right now are not all that pretty. They're
not
in the wrong
good.
direction.
And you see Germany came in this morning with a higher print.
Yep. And everything that we do from a protectionist standpoint is just another, little bit of fuel on the fire for inflation to potentially kick up.
Yeah. Well, this is a lot of fun. Again, Taylor, thank you for being here. When and where can people find you?
Yeah, find us on TikTok and on Instagram. We put out daily content there. We're at Life Goal Investments, little 60-second clips every single day.
Yeah, it is fun to watch you create content every day. It's amazing that you can create content every day, right? It's like there's always more to talk about.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks for the kind words. Yeah, it's every day can be a lot sometimes, but also there are days where I'm like, hey, there's 5 great ideas. Which one do you go with today?
There you go. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.